A director-level position opens. Two candidates are considered seriously, not in any official sense, because the organization has not yet announced that the role is open, but in the way that roles at that level are always considered before they are announced. In brief exchanges between the people whose judgment will determine the outcome, conducted in the margin of other conversations, without agenda or record. The first candidate has run the larger team. His numbers are cleaner. His tenure is longer. He has managed more complexity, delivered under harder constraints, and accumulated more formal recognition than anyone else at his level. He knows he is the stronger candidate. He has made certain, over the past 18 months, that the people who matter know it too. In quarterly reviews, in well-placed project summaries, in the visibility he has built through consistent high performance in every forum the organization provides for demonstrating it. He has done everything the system asks. The second candidate runs a smaller function. Her scope is narrower. Her output, measured by the metrics the formal system tracks, is not as impressive. She has not campaigned. She has not managed her visibility. She has simply, over a period of years, become the person that two of the three decision-makers call when they need to think through something they are not yet ready to make official. The promotion goes to the second candidate. The first candidate experiences this as a failure of the system. He is not wrong that the system failed, only wrong about which system. The system that evaluated him correctly, by every metric it was designed to measure, was the formal one. He performed exactly as well as his record showed. The system that selected against him never acknowledged his record at all. It was not evaluating what he had built. It was evaluating something else entirely. The specific quality of becoming necessary before becoming visible. He cannot appeal this outcome. He cannot name it clearly in any official forum, because the system that produced it does not appear in any documentation the organization maintains about how decisions at that level are made. In the spring of 1494, Ludovico Sforza controlled Milan through a structure that had no formal basis. His nephew, Gian Galeazzo, was the Duke, the legitimate title holder, the official authority, the name on the documents. Ludovico held the position of regent, a temporary designation that had long since passed its nominal expiration. He had no formal claim to the power he exercised. He exercised it completely. What Ludovico had built across nearly 2 decades was a position inside the informal architecture of the Milanese court, so structurally embedded that his removal would have required dismantling the relationships, obligations, and information networks that held the institution together. The formal title was a registration. The power was located elsewhere, in the accumulated web of dependencies that every significant actor in the court had developed toward him specifically. He had not acquired this through performance. He had acquired it through the patient construction of necessity, becoming the person through whom things moved. Not because he had been assigned that role, but because the court had come to depend on it. Machiavelli studied this case and others like it across the Italian city-states and arrived at a conclusion that the era's formal political theorists were unable to reach. Power and authority are not the same instrument. Authority is assigned. Power is built. They can coincide, and in stable systems they frequently do, but they are separate things, accumulate through separate mechanisms, and are lost through separate failures. The man who possessed only authority was always navigating a situation whose actual geometry was being shaped by men with less authority and more power. The specific error the formally decorated but structurally weak authority holder made in every case Machiavelli examined was repeatable. He confused the record of his past performance with the architecture of his current position. He believed that what he had done was what made him important. He had not understood that what actually produced his continuity in the structure was not historical. It was relational. present tense, and structural. And it had to be continuously maintained, not because his contributions would be forgotten, but because necessity, unlike recognition, is evaluated in real time. The modern corporate promotion cycle operates on this same logic, with a precision its official documentation never acknowledges. The formal process, the competency review, the structured interview, the committee deliberation exists and it functions. What it functions as is a documentation procedure for a selection that has, in most consequential cases, already been made through an entirely different mechanism. The selection that matters happens before the role is announced. It happens in the bilateral conversation where one senior leader asks another which names come to mind. Not which names have the strongest records, but which names they would actually trust to navigate the specific ambiguities this role will require. It happens in the accumulated pattern of who got called when something needed to be thought through before it became official. It happens in the informal inference, built across months or years of direct engagement, of whose judgment has been tested in conditions where the cost of poor judgment was real and where institutional performance was not being observed. This preselection is not a distortion of the formal system. It is the formal system's necessary infrastructure. Organizations at any level of genuine complexity cannot evaluate the qualities that matter most: judgment under ambiguity, trustworthiness with unpolished context, the capacity to think alongside rather than perform at, through standardized assessment. So they evaluate those qualities informally, continuously, in every interaction that sits outside official measurement. The accumulation of those informal evaluations is the actual substrate on which promotion decisions at consequential levels are made. The man who has spent years optimizing for what the formal process measures has been building a record. The record is real. The committee will note it. The record simply does not answer the question the decision makers arrived at that committee already having answered. Do I trust this person's judgment enough to give them the authority to operate in conditions I cannot fully supervise? That question is not evaluated in the formal process. It is answered before the formal process begins, and it is answered by the specific texture of every interaction that left an impression, or failed to, in the informal system operating continuously beneath the visible one. The structural principle this produces is one that most capable professionals encounter through its effects long before they encounter it as a principle. They experience it as unfairness, the persistent, low-grade confusion of doing everything right and still not getting the outcome that everything right was supposed to produce. What they are experiencing is not unfairness. It is the accurate output of a system whose logic they have not yet fully mapped. The system does not promote the strongest record. It promotes the person who has become most necessary to the people making the decision. Necessity and record are related. A poor performer does not typically become necessary, but they are not the same variable, and they are not built through the same behaviors. Record is built through sustained high-quality output in the channels the formal system measures. Necessity is built through the quality and consistency of judgment in the channels the formal system cannot measure. The conversation before the meeting, the consultation before the announcement, the exchange where someone with real authority tested another person's thinking in an unguarded context and came away with their confidence recalibrated upward. The behaviors that build record are not wrong. They are simply not sufficient. Treating them as the complete answer to the question of advancement is the specific error that holds capable people in the execution layer of every organization they pass through. There is an additional structural feature of this dynamic that rarely gets named precisely. The relationship between record and necessity is not symmetrical over time. A record, once built, depreciates slowly. The recognition it accumulates persists across performance cycles, reorganizations, changes in leadership. It is a lagging indicator that continues to produce returns after the work that generated it has passed. Necessity depreciates fast. It is evaluated in real time, in the present tense, by the specific people who depend on it right now. A person who was necessary 2 years ago and has since become less available, less engaged, less distinctively valuable in the informal channels, that person's necessity has already begun to drain from the system, regardless of what the record still shows. The performance review will still be strong. The compensation will still track correctly. The first indication that something has changed will be the promotion that went to someone else, or the key project that got staffed without this person's name being raised, or the meeting that was called and concluded before this person knew it had occurred. The man who understands this relationship does not abandon the formal performance disciplines. He maintains them because a strong record is the minimum condition for being considered at all. He maintains them while understanding with equal clarity that the record is not the variable on which the actual decision will turn. The career architecture most capable professionals have built is optimized for the wrong output. They have spent years becoming maximally excellent at the visible layer of the system. They produce at the level the formal system measures, respond at the pace the reliability hierarchy rewards, demonstrate at every available opportunity the competence they have every right to claim. And they have, in the process, systematically underinvested in the dimension that most directly determines advancement at the level they are actually trying to reach. The investment the formal system never names is relational and contextual. It is the accumulated capital that makes a specific senior leader think of a specific person, not as the strongest record in the pool, but as the first name that comes to mind when a problem requires judgment that cannot be evaluated through output. That capital is not built through performance. It is built through the quality of direct engagement in unmediated contexts. The conversation that happened without an agenda. The question asked in the margin of a larger meeting that reframed how the problem was being understood. The consistent quality of thinking under conditions where performance was not being observed, and where the thinking itself was the only thing being registered. This is not networking. Networking is a transactional exchange within the visibility layer. What produces the capital that determines advancement at consequential levels is something slower, less legible, and more demanding. The patient construction of a specific kind of trust that the formal system has no mechanism to produce and no language to acknowledge. The first candidate in the promotion cycle that opened this script had not failed to perform. He had performed correctly. He had simply organized the entirety of his professional investment around the layer of the system that documents performance, and left underdeveloped the layer that determines, before any documentation begins, which names will be seriously considered and which will be evaluated after the decision has already been shaped. He had built a record that required no trust to verify. The second candidate had built a position that required no verification at all, because the people making the decision had already tested her thinking in the conditions that mattered and already knew what they were getting. The system is not broken. It is not failing to reward merit. It is rewarding exactly what it has always rewarded at every level above execution. Not the strongest record among the candidates formally presented, but the person whose necessity to the institution's actual functioning had already been established through channels the institution depends on and cannot formally acknowledge. The performance review measures what you have produced. The promotion decision measures something the performance review was never designed to capture. Those two evaluations run in parallel on different evidence through different mechanisms, and they produce results that diverge, often sharply, From what the man calibrated entirely to the first evaluation believes the system should be producing. The organizational chart is an accurate map of formal authority. It has never been a map of where the actual decisions about that chart are made. Those decisions were made before the chart was updated, by the people whose judgment had already been tested in the spaces between what the chart shows. Through a process the chart cannot represent. The chart catches up eventually. It catches up to a position that was already real.